Hello and welcome to Deeply Curious. My name is Cody Jensen, and joining me in our New York City studio apartment is my wife, Sarah.
Hello.
In this episode, we're just going to be shooting the breeze and also talking about audience and whether you should change for your audience or just different things like that. We had a creator pop-up this week, and there was a lot of discussion all throughout the day, just because there was a lot of creators there. So we had a lot of questions about different, beginner creator questions.
Yeah, strategies and how to grow and all of that.
And it got all these thoughts going for me.
Yeah.
And one thing that I really, I don't know, I guess I got fired up.
Yeah, you couldn't stop talking about it. So then you were like, we're going to make this a podcast.
Yeah. Is changing for your audience.
Yeah.
But before we jump into the conversation, I want to let you know that this podcast is brought to you by B&H Photo Video in New York City and worldwide online. B&H Photo Video is why we sound so good right now.
Yes.
Because they hooked a brother and a sister up with some new equipment. And so we're recording this podcast with brand new microphones, brand new recorder, microphone stands, the whole kit and caboodle, as the 90s girls would say.
Kit and caboodle. I used to think it was kitten caboodle, like a cat.
It's like a little cat carrier, a kitten.
A kitten caboodle.
So just want to give a huge thank you to B&H. They are creator focused. They care more about, the
people and the connection or the relationships.
Yes, more than, obviously, they're a company. They want people to know, hey, we're B&H, and we have a wide and best selection of all of the things that you could ever want for your technological needs. But
they're good people too.
They're great people, and they know how to take care of their customers and their partners. And so we just say thank you. If you want to know the equipment that we use for this podcast, all of those links are in the show notes or in the description if you're watching on YouTube. Clicking on those lets B&H know that you found them through us, which ultimately helps us out.
Yes.
This podcast is also brought to you by Deeply Curious merch, which you can get by going to shop.deeplycurious.fm. You can get yourself a couple different t-shirts or a hoodie or a mug for your morning coffee while you're listening to your morning podcast, which might be us. So if you want to check out ways to support the show, just checking out some B&H gear in the description or going to shop.deeplycurious.fm. Thank you guys for listening. We really do appreciate it.
Yep.
And for your loyal support.
Sound like the radio ad for your loyal support.
Yeah. This is our pledge drive.
Yeah.
Our NPR pledge drive for the next 6 months straight. We're going to be hitting you up for those pledges. Okay, so jumping into today's show, I figured we would start off with some interesting developments in our life.
Oh.
That whenever you are listening to this, we are hopefully either in London.
That's the goal.
Or we have returned from London. The original plan was for us to leave for London actually tonight after recording this podcast. But you know how you're supposed to check in for your flights 24 hours in advance? And so we had our flights booked. We had a confirmation email, a receipt. The charge was on the credit card. Everything was good to go. But then the last couple days, I'm like, I haven't heard anything from the airline. Normally you get some emails of like, don't forget to check in, or like, here's maybe some things you need to know, or whatever it is. Nothing. Radio silence. So last night it was getting around the 24-hour mark until our flight time. So I was like, okay, I need to get the email and check in. I had not received an email from the airline. So I went to our original, confirmation email, and it at the bottom, there was no link for the website, but it said, if you need to change your reservation or whatever, check out our website. And I was like, okay, well, there's no link here. So I went to Google and I Googled Primera Air to get the website. Well, the first hit was not their website, and in fact was a news article from October 1st. This mentioned something about Primera Air shutting down. And then I went to the second one, and it was Primera Air files bankruptcy and strands customers at terminals.
Yeah.
Third one, Primera Air abruptly cancels all flights and services. And then the fourth one, again, another news article, all from October 1st and 2nd. And Sarah is sitting on the couch next to me watching
Love Actually.
Yeah, a movie. And I'm kind of like frantically on my computer, and she's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, nothing, don't worry about it. And I wanted to make sure before
because I get immediately anxious about everything. So
I was, trying to make sure I had all my facts and, basically trying to find the solution before I announced the problem.
Yes.
Well, after a few minutes of searching, I paused the movie.
There was no solution.
And I was like, well, see that, going to London tomorrow. That airline literally filed bankruptcy. And shut down. Yeah,
so they just completely disappeared. They left customers completely stranded. We never even got a notification or a cancellation like that. They just pretended like nothing was happening, I guess. I don't even know. So I called the credit card company, which this was 11 p.m.
Yes.
Right? We're supposed to fly out at 9 p.m.
I was about to go to bed.
Yes.
I was just like, well, before I go to bed, I'm going to check in for our flight so I don't have to do it in the morning.
Yeah. And so 11 p.m. and I called the credit card company and I was like, apparently we have flights to London tomorrow, but apparently the airline filed bankruptcy and I never got a notification about anything. Like, what do I do? So they were like, oh yeah, I've gotten several calls. She said, is it Primera Air? And I said, yes. She was like, you didn't get a notification? And I was like, no. She was like, oh my gosh, I've gotten so many calls from people who booked with Primera Air. It was like such a mess. So anyways, they got us our money back, but we didn't have a flight to London for tomorrow.
Right. And we booked these months in advance.
Like 6 months ago. And
because we wanted, obviously we're frugal.
Yeah.
We wanted to get these things cheap.
Yeah. And
obviously we were flying Primera Air. Obviously we were trying to get them cheap.
I don't really care about having a fancy airline. But I want the airline to be reliable.
Right.
So anyway, our friend is already over there who we're going with. We already paid and booked for our Airbnb. I was like, I am not going to London. Like I'm going to London. It's in my head. It's happening.
And this is our 10-year wedding anniversary trip that we're going on. We're not just going to well, there's always next year.
Yeah. I was so irritated. So anyways, it was like a 2-hour anxiety filled time frame of searching for a flight. And we finally found one. It's more expensive, but it's like it doesn't hurt too much to pay the extra money, you know?
Yes. So we were able to get almost the same flight time. It's a
we'll get there on the same day, just like 8 hours later. So we're not losing too much time.
So we aren't losing too much time. We are losing a few $100. So if you want to go to shop.deeplycurious.fm,
help us out. It was a crazy night. And then I couldn't calm down because I was literally just freaking out for 2 hours.
Yeah. And then I was sitting here thinking, leave it to an airline started in 2004, this millennial airline, to literally go bankrupt and ghost us.
Ghost everybody. That's exactly what happened.
Stupid millennials.
Can you believe that? I could not believe that. I don't need a fancy airline, but my gosh. Courteous is nice.
Like I was reading,
even if you just send an email that's like, "Hey, by the way, we're bankrupt.
We can't even afford an email."
I should have known this months ago.
Like even their website was completely down. Like if you go to it just says like it has a phone number and that's it.
Yeah,
it's just like a loading screen.
It was crazy.
And then I started reading some of those articles, and it was saying that it was so abrupt that like even employees of the airline were stranded in foreign countries
Yeah.
with
No way to get home.
Like no company paid way to get home.
Correct.
They
yeah.
had to find
Well-
their own way home. And like pilots were in the sky learning that they did not have a job when they landed.
Yeah. And even customers in other countries stranded, no flights home. They couldn't get anywhere. They just like show up to the airport and they're like, "Oh, your airline's bankrupt. Sorry." Like, oh.
Also, what's weird to me is how is this not like a big news story?
Exactly. That's what I can't figure. Like, I feel like I should have heard about this, but I saw nothing online about it.
I mean, I always said there were like articles online because they all popped up when I searched for it. But
it would have, I mean, usually stuff like this is like pretty.
that seems like a pretty sensational story that would,
yeah, it did not make my Twitter feed.
That the news cycles would eat up. You know?
It did not make my Twitter feed, that's for sure.
I wonder what other big news happened around October 1st and 2nd that wouldn't be the case.
I don't know.
Hopefully it wasn't something really bad that I'm forgetting and everybody's like,
duh. You're so insensitive. Well, anyways, not that you can because they're bankrupt, but never fly Primera Air.
Maybe don't, Fly Airlines started in 2004.
Yeah. Gosh, I could not believe it. I was literally just like face in my hands. What the crap is happening for like 2 hours? I could not believe it. So anyways.
Yeah.
Our vacation is starting out great in New York City.
But you definitely have a podcast to listen to.
We had time to record the podcast.
Yeah, and a story to tell. Also,
that's true. I will appreciate this later down the line because I'm very much about like the experience of something. Like if it makes a good story, I'm not too mad about it, you know? Like, well, it'll be a fun story later. So there we are.
And also, because of this and because Sarah has definitively decided she's not going to ride her booster board, I have a booster board to sell. If you want a booster board for yourself and
try to make up those hundreds of dollars.
Help me pay for my London trip. Hit a brother up. Yeah.
It's funny.
Do you have anything else you'd like to water cooler?
No. I don't think so. What does that mean? Oh, like standing around the water cooler talking about shooting the breeze.
Yeah.
No, I got nothing.
Sarah is a millennial. So young, doesn't even know what a water cooler talk means.
I guess that's true.
It's a turn of phrase.
Gotcha.
An expression of the baby boomer.
Oh, the baby boomer.
Yes.
I have a water cooler conversation. The new 1975
album.
Yeah,
that was on my list and I totally forgot.
Is beyond anything I have ever experienced.
Obviously not on my written list or I wouldn't have forgot.
Yeah.
It's on my mental list.
It's a lot of people are saying it's the millennial generation's answer to OK Computer by Radiohead, which was their album about computers and about like internet and like how it's affecting us, which is exactly what this is about, online relationships and whatever. It is what I've been saying is, for one, so many different sounds on this album. Like each individual song is like so different than the last that it's absolutely insane. But everything is like really great, and it really is like a fantastic commentary on our online lives now and like what the millennial generation is dealing with as far as like online relationships, our culture, everything like that. It's mind-blowing. It's like a defining album for the 1975. It's so freaking good. Highly recommend. 10 out of 10.
This is another segment of Jensen's Recommend.
Yes. Yeah. Which we do on our YouTube video. I don't think we've done that on a podcast.
Kind of. I mean, in the first few episodes.
In case you're a listener and not a YouTube watcher, we do a segment called Jensen's Recommend. This time it's the 1975's new album. I'm telling you, it'll change your life. It's so good.
I mean, what? Give me what does it make you feel? What? Give me a thought.
What does it make me feel?
Yeah.
Literally everything. I think what I love about it is that it is a really good question and commentary on online life and like how it's affecting us. And because we are the loneliest generation, yet we are the most connected. So, and it really like talks about all of that. And it talks about like suicidal thoughts as not something to be ashamed about. And it talks about loneliness, and it talks about the like not just American, but political culture in the UK and in America, like where we're at right now. And just everything about it is just kind of laying out the world as it is in this current state, but like not being on one side or the other. Like it's not angry, it's not whatever. It's just like, this is where we're at. And I was reading an article, and Maddie Healy said something about like the 1975 is very representative of the millennial generation. And the millennial generation is kind of all over the place musically and particularly mentally unwell. And that, I think, is exactly what this album presents. Like it just does it in such a good way. And it's like, it's really honest without being like he was like in Sincerity is Scary. Like it's not ironic. It's not hiding behind feelings of any sort. It's just like openly honest and true, but not in an uncomfortable way. Like I don't know how they did it. It's just like so perfect. It's my passion.
So the 1975 would definitely be on both of our top list of favorite band.
Absolutely. Yeah. I don't think I've ever known another band like the 1975 in my time. I'm sure like older bands, but I wasn't allowed to listen to music until I was like 16. So I missed a lot of bands, but the 1975 is just everything that they do. I'm just blown away. And this new album is like another level of that.
Sarah's what you would call a fangirl.
Yeah. No shame. Honestly, you should just like what you like.
Amen.
And promote it, you know?
Yeah.
So that's what I'm doing.
I ain't scared to be a fanboy. I have an apple tattoo on my arm.
That's true.
Next up, 1975.
Yeah. I really do want to get a tattoo for them, but I don't know what.
Maddie's face.
Yeah, probably. Right over my heart.
Right over your eye.
Yeah.
My favorite, or like one thing that I really like about the album is they have this, I don't know what you call it, an instrumental interlude with, I don't know, a spoken word poem?
I would call it, yeah. A little speech.
Yeah, it's like a
voiced by
a speech
Siri
or
a computer, whatever.
But it's Maddie's voice.
Well, it's a male British voice. I don't know if it's Maddie's or not. I think it might be.
I think it sounds like
just
Maddie.
Distorted, but something I read when I was looking up the lyrics, all it said was UK male voice. It didn't say Maddie.
Yeah,
you know.
I guess I've never heard the UK male Siri voice. So.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Anyway, it sounds like it's like Siri-esque.
Right.
Yeah.
Telling a story of a lonely man in a lonely neighborhood who finds love with the internet.
Yeah. Not on the internet, with the internet. Yeah.
And his kind of sad love story of falling in love with the internet and then dying.
It is.
And then the only thing left of him is his Facebook page.
It's seriously messing me up. Even still, like I listened to the album the day it came out. I'm not even kidding, on repeat for 9 hours straight. It's just like the only thing I listen to. And even still, it's the only thing I turn on when I turn on music. And every time, it's called The Man Who Married a Robot. Every time it comes on, it just messes me up every time. It's such, like one of the lines is like, he took the internet everywhere, with him. He, even to parties of kids of lesser important friends, and like, because we're so glued to our phone, even when we're with people, like it's the thing that we grab, I guess. Man, it messes me up. It's such a good commentary.
Yeah. And I think that's a good like segue into kind of the conversation that I've been thinking about, is this conversation of, should we cater to an online audience,
right,
or to an audience in general? But
right.
I mean, kind of the genesis of this is an online audience.
Mm-hmm.
Because a little backstory, if basically if you aren't familiar or you didn't see the last video from the pop-up, we were there and we were answering a lot of questions from people that we met, and we had a panel that we were answering panel discussion questions and audience Q&A. And some things that came up were things like, if you have been working on your art, your YouTube or whatever, and it's been a year and you only have 200 subscribers and you're discouraged and you're going to quit and all this stuff, like, what advice do you have? And what do you, I forget the exact phrasing of the question, but it's essentially like, how do you change with your audience? Like, how do you,
right.
like,
well, how do you create, how do you create art or videos or whatever that your audience is going to like? How do you know how to go in that direction? That kind of thing.
Yeah. And like evolving with your audience,
right,
and all that type of stuff. And everybody had great answers to the question, but at the same time, I felt so opposed, I guess. Like, the answers that everybody gives, not just even the people on the panel, but the typical answers to these questions, when it is in regards to YouTube and social life, like being an influencer, is it all evolves around chasing the audience. And it just gave me such a,
or like paying so close attention to the numbers of like, oh, okay, more people watched this title,
right,
so I'm going to do more things along the lines of that kind of thing. Yeah.
And my answer in the panel discussion was that I don't think that you should change for your audience.
Yeah.
Because why would you change your content, the things that you love, the thing that you are doing, your passion? Why would you change your passion and the art you are creating for a sea of numbers?
Right.
Or, it's like, yeah, there are people and there are faces behind all of those numbers.
Yeah.
But to like chase the growing numbers by changing yourself and changing the things that you are making is absurd to me. And that I think that what you should do, if your audience does not like your art, then I think that you should just get a different audience.
Right.
Find a new audience, or educate your audience on how to love what you make.
Right.
Or, however that is, which I understand is much harder.
Well, I think if you take it outside of YouTube, right? Because I think, or at least that's the space we're in, but I don't know if it's the same on Instagram or whatever. You take it outside of socials and like any other art, people aren't like, oh my gosh, you don't like this? Okay, I'll change it.
Right.
Like any musicians or artists, they don't sit in a room thinking like, okay, this song people didn't like, so I'm going to like change my songwriting to match what people want, right? Like, no, they sit in a room and they come up with a song and they think, this is a good song. I like this song. And then they put it out there, or even like illustrators or painters or whatever, like any other art medium. They're not sitting around going like, oh, you don't like that? Okay, I'll change it. Like so I think the difference in socials is that for some reason that's become the norm. And I think it's a little weird. I think it's strange to create your art based on like again, they're all real people and they're very much appreciated, but some stranger you don't know, right? Like you're going to let them influence who you are. And that is wild and not why they followed you in the first place. Like, people don't follow you because you're going to dilute yourself to what they want. They follow you because you're inspiring. So, like, you have to stay true to that in some form or fashion.
Right. And if you like, okay, so I kept thinking, this was just going on in my mind, like for the next day. I just kept thinking of all of these things.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of anecdotes, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And one of those anecdotes that I thought of is like, even in the YouTube space, like for, people would consider like Casey Neistat to be the number one, kind
like the golden rule, like
vlogger.
Yeah.
Like there's bigger YouTubers out there, but as far as like vlogging, he's like, but like at the top,
gold standard.
Like the YouTube golden boy, that type of thing. Basically, he has 10 million subscribers. I mean, at least last time I knew.
Yeah.
And like a large majority of people love what he does. And my question like is to because, but the reason I bring him up is because a lot of new creators and stuff, they're like trying to be Casey, or they use Casey as inspiration to start and like find their own voice through that and all that type of stuff.
Which is great. We've talked about that before.
But my question is, when have you ever seen Casey change for his audience?
Right.
I've been watching him for a long time.
Yeah.
And I have never seen him change his content or do something different because that's what his audience demanded of him.
Right.
Casey has been Casey, which is why he's successful, because he's a different, unique voice.
Yeah.
So if you're going to, another like example or a story that goes with that is two things. One, you have the famous kind of quote or whatever from Steve Jobs of him saying that people don't know what they want until they have it, which is why he never did focus groups for Apple products. And I don't think Apple still does focus groups.
Right.
And
you have to show them what they want.
Right. It's like if you were trying to make the very first iPod or the very first iPhone or whatever, and you brought in a committee, basically, that's what a focus group is. You brought in a committee, a group think to this thing. You wouldn't come up with the iPhone. You would come up with the Sidekick or, whatever it is. And then you didn't revolutionize anything. You didn't create
because
a unique
you
voice.
diluted everything down to fit the majority.
Right.
Yeah.
And another a story that I love this story, and it makes me think about whenever this was coming up, made me think about it again. And it's the story of, I think it was in a TED Talk, but it's basically a guy. He's in a large room of people, and he tells the entire group, what I want you to do is pair up in twos. I want you, or maybe it was start with 4 people or whatever. I want you to get in very small groups, and I want you to decide amongst yourselves what is the group's favorite color.
Okay.
And then he said, after like 2 minutes of letting them do that, he said, all right, now you merge with another group and do the same thing. And he said, and then after that, it was like, now you merge and do the same thing, merge and do the same thing, until there was 2 huge groups. It could have been, I don't know how big the room was, but let's say, a group of 100 and another group of 100. He said, all right, now spokesperson for each of the group get together and now decide the collective favorite color of the room. And then he said, I'm going to take this clipboard, and he's going to write what he thinks it is, and he writes it down. And he says, okay, what's the group's favorite color? And they say blue. And he turns his clipboard around, and he had written blue.
I knew it was going to be blue.
And he said, I have done this, how many ever times, and it has never not been blue.
Yeah.
Because the collective mindset, and it's also, I don't remember exactly how this went, but basically it was like, but how many people in the room actually, their favorite color is blue? And it was like, 25, 30, whatever percentage it was, but it wasn't like a vast, like 75%. And that it was the fact that whenever blue is the least offensive number or color.
Yeah.
And it's like in a committee, in a group think, if you just take, the loudest voices, or you just like, I don't know, like water down the opinion, or water down the voice of every person, you just end up with blue because it doesn't offend anybody.
Right.
And so take that analogy, take that concept and apply that to you having an audience, and your audience is out there, and there's going to be lots of voices that come through in that, and they think what they want is for you to make their favorite thing, or for you to make the group's like collective idea of what this thing is. But in reality, yes, that may bring you short-term, I guess, YouTube success.
Right.
But that isn't the way to build a long-lasting fandom or audience, or to be truly influential, because you're not influencing them. They are influencing you.
Yeah, like you're creating art based on what other people want, and eventually that it's not the same. Like, it's just not going to be you, you know? I think it's also weird to me in the context of like social jobs, I guess, YouTube, Instagram, whatever, because we're basing all of what the audience wants to see, you know, quote unquote, on algorithms. And I wonder how much that plays a part in, you know what I mean? Because, I mean, you could create something that maybe most of your audience actually does want to see, but none of them will see it because the algorithm didn't push it or something. You know what I mean? Or like you're basing like what
it wasn't
photos
the most
people want to see based on how many likes you get on certain types of photos.
Right.
But we all know Instagram's broken. Like we all know that. So it makes me wonder how much of that goes into it too. Yeah.
Well, it also, I want to define the conversation a little bit before I give another opinion, is I am approaching this conversation as people creating art.
Correct.
You could approach this conversation as people creating an alternative job for themselves.
Right, like, I do think like artist and entrepreneur are like very blurred. They're kind of this, you know, like they can be a lot of the same. But I would define it as like artist versus entrepreneurial.
Yeah, because there could be...
Because you can create a job out of YouTube, with that strategy, with following what an audience wants to see, et cetera, et cetera.
Right, like being like completely niche and following an audience and doing all this stuff and building like big numbers.
It's admirable.
It's like, if that is your goal, like you're not trying to create great art, you're just trying to create
a business,
an alternative job for yourself that isn't, working for the man or whatever.
Great. You can do that.
You can do that. Like, so.
But we're mostly talking about the other side of it.
Right. I am defining this as people creating art because I think, I don't know, at the end of the day, a lot of these people, starting out, creators and all this stuff, it's like, think about even with that term. It's like a creator, you're creating things, which means you're creative, which means that it is art. Mm-hmm. And you're creating art to be consumed, which in turn makes it so easy to chase an audience.
Right.
And
look, it's like, I don't know, I kind of look at it like some of the most successful people did not follow those strategies.
Right.
You know what I mean? I mean, like Casey Neistat is a good example on YouTube. But even just like other artists, like society, the majority tries to tell you what is acceptable and what is good and what is right and what they want to see, I guess, if you want to like use that term. But the most successful people don't listen to them. They're like, no, I'm going to love what I love and I'm going to make you love it. And then you'll see, It's
like your passion will be contagious.
Yes.
Type thing.
And it really does work that way, I think. Like all of the great artists, all the great literary figures who just like paved the way for things, right? They did not do what the majority wanted.
Right. And a lot
And
of them,
thank God that they did not.
right, and a lot of them did not find an audience immediately or even before they died.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. I guess, again, the question is, are you trying to create a different job for yourself or like a business for yourself? Or are you trying to create something maybe long lasting? I don't know, like something that's like sustainable.
But I do think you can do
Short
both.
growth.
Like, I do think you can do both.
Yeah.
But I think you can do both if the motives are right. Like,
yeah, it's hard to put into words what I'm trying
if you're making great art, we live in a world now where we no longer live in the starving artist. Like, if you're to a degree, if you are making great stuff, you can find an audience for it, because with the internet, we have now created a global audience where you can, if your art is like, I don't know, let's crazy weird, and maybe 20 years ago you couldn't find people to enjoy your, I don't know, SpongeBob fan art that combines X, Y, and Z, but now because of the internet, you're able to. It may not be a huge audience, but you could find thousands of people to like enjoy it, and then how do you leverage that? Is like kind of the thing, and that's where the entrepreneurial skills come in.
Yes.
And not selling your soul for the audience, but selling your art and selling, the, whether it's entertainment or the value or whatever to that audience, which allows you to create the things that you want.
Right. But then getting too concerned about what the audience wants and morphing your art into that, I feel like is, I hesitate to say like wrong or disingenuous or any of those words, because it all depends on what your goal is, I guess. Right. But like, for me personally, I feel like it's disingenuous to yourself to morph your art into something just because the audience demands it.
Right.
I mean, I just like, if you look at any other art form, any other medium, that is not how it works. Artists, musicians don't go into the studio and think like, oh, okay, this username hated this song, so we need to like not put as many jazz notes in the, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, they don't do that.
But you know who in the music industry does care about the audience and does care about the numbers? Record labels.
Yes.
And you know what all artists hate? Record labels. Because they don't let them create the art that they want.
Yeah.
And sometimes a record label can create a hit.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean
and sometimes like they really are good to the artists, like it's not a blanket statement, but I mean, a good example would be like the 1975 couldn't get signed. Like nobody would take them on. So they created their own label with their friend. They created Dirty Hit, and 1975 was the first band for Dirty Hit. I mean, because they refused to be anything but who they are. You know what I mean?
Right.
And like, I don't know. I just think that it's weird on the social internet that we've got it so opposite of that.
Yeah. I was texting our friend Josh about this the other day because, again, this was on my mind.
It was on your mind.
And one of the things I said was that art used to be starving with no easy way to find an audience, but we're to the point that art is taking a back seat to audience when the audience should be the result of art.
Yes, audience should be the result. That's perfect.
It's like we're now in this weird age of trying to create influence, trying to build this audience, and then trying to create things to entertain them or sell to them or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like, that is completely backwards, because your motivation shouldn't be the audience. It shouldn't be the numbers. It should be what you are creating.
Right. Yeah. Like if you're truly a creator, you're truly an artist, which I think anybody who is in that space is like,
and I feel like all of us are, if you want to be.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I don't know why it's so backwards. And it's just really strange. I think like if you create what you love, like people just want authenticity and people want honesty and something that's real and true and genuine. And like, if you just create what you love and you love it, the audience will come. The people will get behind that, you know?
Right.
Like,
and you may need to spice a little bit of entrepreneurial skill in that, because there are tons of amazing artists out there that are just putting their heads down, creating their art, and they have never found an audience for it.
Absolutely.
I mean, to go back to the Steve Jobs story, it's like Steve Wozniak, he had his head down. He was building this stuff. He was inventing these technologies. He was making it better. But it took the entrepreneur skills and the artistry skills of Steve Jobs to come in and partner and be like, okay, this is the best thing out there, but it's not going anywhere because you need, the extra skills to go with it. And that partnership between the perfect melding, the perfect Venn diagram of creativity, technology, or there's the art and the entrepreneurial skills is what created now the richest company in the world, $1 trillion company that, obviously now it's arguable, who makes, better technology, but what you can't argue is that they completely changed the world.
Right.
You're arguing over who makes the best thing that Apple originally invented.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So it's like, they completely changed the world because they crafted the art, spiced, brought in the entrepreneurial skills, and with no compromise to what people wanted.
Right, but that's the point, is no compromise, I think. Like, obviously, you have to, especially today, I feel like being an artist, like, you do have to be an entrepreneur. They go hand in hand.
Yeah.
I mean, you can even look like the 1975, they had to be entrepreneurial in order to start their own label, in order to make it themselves, like that's a business, that's not just like creating good music.
Right.
But they didn't compromise their music in any of that. Yeah. And that's the point.
Another example that I thought of is, you want to talk about television writers and network TV, and how there are these huge success stories like Seinfeld, who, was created by artists, and then, a network took a chance on them, and then because it wasn't expected to be a success, they left them alone.
Yes. They were like, you're not going to be anything. Just do what you want.
They just kind of let them do what they wanted.
Yeah.
And, left them alone, and ended up being the most successful television show in history.
Yeah.
And then you have, all of these the new age of television, from the last 10 years. You had all of these terrible TV shows. Like, if you turned on CBS, NBC, whatever, it's like, yeah, there could have been some good writing on these shows, but really, they weren't.
Nothing is going to last like Seinfeld will.
Maybe
some of those classics.
Maybe they
Cheers.
Yeah, I'm not saying that all television was all bad, because you could be entertained by it.
Yeah.
But to say it was a masterpiece, or to say like, whatever, it's like a lot of it was
changed the game.
Right.
Yeah.
A lot of it was just like, you just sit there and watch it. Like, sometimes you just turn your brain off. But then you have these players come in, anyways, doesn't matter. You have these big guys come in like HBO and Netflix, who they give complete freedom to the showrunners, to the show writers. And they say, hey, we believe in the art, and we're going to give you a budget.
Here's the money. And
let you go for it.
Yeah.
And then you get things like Game of Thrones, which is absolutely the greatest television show in history.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's a blockbuster movie a week. Then you have Netflix, which Netflix has completely changed the game in the fact that a lot of those water cooler conversations that you have are typically around, did you see the new series of
House
blank
of
show
Cards,
that was out on Netflix?
Yep.
Because Netflix gave creative control over to these artists to create these television shows that went on to become like one of the basically the greatest artful shows that I don't know, that will last.
Yeah. I mean, they completely
they will,
disrupted.
right.
Yeah.
They will way outlast Big Bang Theory.
Yeah.
It's like,
although let's not dog on Big Bang
oh,
Theory.
I'm dogging Big Bang Theory. Take the laugh track away. It's not funny.
Okay, fine. The laugh track, whatever. But Sheldon is amazing. Okay.
I'm not saying
Look,
that,
I don't watch Big
there's
Bang
probably
Theory,
great writers on the show, and they may write some
They're
good
clever.
jokes, but
yes, I understand what you're saying.
take away the laugh track,
Yeah.
and you will laugh 75%
The
less.
laugh track is a weird. When did that happen? Because that is a weird thing in TV.
Yeah.
Like
It happened back in the transition of television from movie theaters, because people were like weirded out because in movie theater days, when everybody would go see the penny show, it's like you're in a group of people, and when they would say a joke, everybody laughs, and it's a communal experience. And it was weird to be sitting at home and not have that like
see, I can't imagine
community experience. And so they had the laugh track in there, and the laugh track was huge for decades.
Because think
But
about
then it
like
fell out of style.
The Office with the laugh track
Right.
would be
Awful.
awful.
And actually, the Office is a great example, because I'm pretty sure it was the Office that basically led the transition out of the laugh track.
Yeah, because can you imagine? Like, it would totally ruin 90% of the jokes on The Office.
Right.
If it was like, ha 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 ha,
Yeah, laugh track then fell out of style, and now it is like, completely normal to laugh in your home by yourself.
Yeah, which also, what does that mean about us? First, it was weird that there weren't other people to laugh with, and now we're like, ew, I don't want to laugh with other people.
I think it goes back to because it's not genuine.
It isn't genuine. You're right. Yeah.
Because it's not authentic to know that audience isn't laughing because they think it's funny. Mm-hmm. It's laughing because it's either a computer,
or it's telling you to laugh.
Or it's a live studio audience with applause and laughter signs going off whenever on jokes that they have laughed at probably 3 or 4 times. Yeah. Because they're recording a show and they don't always land every single line. They do multiple takes.
You're right. Weird.
Anyways, yes, laugh track.
Can go.
Yes, I don't understand why CBS still uses it. Like I just can't. Any show that has a laugh track, I just
can't do it.
I can't do it. I get so annoyed.
Yeah. Sorry, I diverged the conversation.
There actually is a very interesting episode. The reason I knew some facts about the laugh track is because there's a really great episode of 99% Invisible all about the laugh track.
That's a great podcast.
And would recommend checking it out.
Jensen's recommend.
Yeah. So, I mean, that was basically my thoughts, or my, the other thoughts that I kept having of just whenever a TV show is created and they start getting network notes, and the show starts changing based on the notes that the network is giving, and the network is not artists.
Right.
They're businessmen.
They're looking at the numbers.
They're looking at the numbers. They're doing whatever. And they're like, hey, change this, change that, change this, change that. And they basically are dumbing down the show, and they're making it less offensive. They're making it whatever. And that ultimately makes for mild art.
Right.
And I don't want to consume, or I don't really want to create mild art. I want to create something that is me.
Right.
Not the most PC version of me.
Yeah.
I just want to create things that are me.
Yeah.
And it's not that I'm setting out to create offensive art.
Right. But I think offensive is it depends on how you define. It's not offensive as in
right. It's not
shocking
and it's saying, certain language that demeans other humans.
Right.
It's more so just
things that, there's a quote about art that says,
great art
disturbs the comfortable and comforts the disturbed.
Right.
And so it's kind of about that. It's about disturbing the comfortable, I guess, in a way. You're not creating to keep them comfortable.
Right.
Or to placate what they want. You're creating to create. And nobody else should have a say in that to a certain degree. I do think there is such a thing as like the trusted few who you show your ideas to,
Right.
who can help you vet whether it's a good or a bad idea. Like there is like a certain, hierarchy of how you should distribute art. But more talking about the majority of people should not have a say in what or how you're creating what you create.
Yeah. That reminded me, I'm trying to look it up and see if I can find this quote, but maybe you'll help me remember that.
Mm-hmm.
There's something along the lines of, if you try to like please everybody, or if you try to offend nobody, then like you like, you know what I'm saying though?
Well, yes, it's something about if you try to, I think it's if you try to please everybody, you end up pleasing nobody,
right?
Or something
yeah,
like that. It's
that's the essence of it.
Yeah.
If trying to please everybody ends up pleasing nobody.
Yeah, like no, if you're trying to make everybody like what you do, then nobody's really going to care about it.
Right. It's like you should, ultimately, I think that you should pursue making what you like.
Yeah. Well, you should be your biggest fan.
Yes.
We talked about that.
And if you create the best, if you're creating the things that you like,
mm-hmm.
then the odds are you're going to find an audience
mm-hmm.
that also likes that thing, because you're not the only one in the whole world.
Right.
Now, you may be one of the few.
Right.
In some cases.
Yeah.
But wouldn't you rather create something uncompromising?
Right. Well, and it's also like, I heard, because I've been deep in the internet of 1975 interviews, Maddie Healy said something about like, your art is really just your intuition, and like all people want is, truth and honesty. So like, if you just follow your intuition in your art, and like you're truthful and honest in it, the people will come. The people will find it. It might take a little bit of time, but you will be uncompromising in your art, and you will find your audience. And I think it's better to have an audience who likes you versus like an audience that's demanding something from you, like some sort of, you know what I mean? I don't know really how to say that.
I kind of found the quote, or at least some similar quotes
mm-hmm.
of, I don't know the key to success, but the key to failure is to try to please everybody.
That's the one. Yeah. It's so true. Also, I feel like, well, if we're talking about like YouTube, I guess you can follow the numbers, like view count, but also comments. I mean, we even, when we very first started, to a tiny degree dealt with this, because we made a video and the comments were like, oh my gosh, I love this idea, you should do it more, blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
So we're like, okay, yeah, we're gonna do it. So we did a couple more, and then obviously it was like, it didn't go very well, and we were like really confused, because we thought, well, everybody wanted this, but then when you actually look at it, like the amount of comments you get versus the amount of views you get are so small,
because we use that language of like, everybody wanted this.
Right. It's like, no, only the 7 people who commented wanted this,
right?
Or something, you know.
And it's probably even less than that.
Yeah, whatever it was, and like,
it's like, man, you would do the same thing in real life too.
Mm-hmm.
It's like somebody tells you, like 2 people
mm-hmm.
tell you that your, I don't know, haircut is great or something.
Yeah.
And you're like, everybody's telling me that my hair is great. And you're like, you saw like 500 people this week and 2 people said something.
Exactly.
It's like, everybody told me.
Yeah. It's funny that like, I don't know what it is about our brains that we're like, oh, maybe it's just patterns. Maybe
I also
we're
think
set
that
to recognize patterns, but
kind of note to go along with comments, if you are somebody who creates things online, is that if you do actually look at the amount of people who watch or view
mm-hmm.
versus the amount of people that comment, it is significantly less.
Yes.
And also, think about yourself. How often do you comment?
I literally never comment on anything.
It's like I'm
a terrible internet person.
There's a certain, basically there's a certain group or certain type of people
who
comment, And a lot of those are great people with great,
but not
feedback and
necessarily
ideas
indicative
or whatever.
of the whole.
Right.
Yeah.
But it goes back to that, I don't know, phrase or quote or whatever of the vocal minority don't necessarily represent the silent majority.
Yes.
And, comments can be really great. Like they're, encouraging or whatever. But you have to remember that's the vocal minority.
They can be deceiving as far as what you think that people want to see. And so I just think going off of view count or going off of comments is just such a terrible way to judge things. But I do want to I do understand that it's kind of two different approaches. There is a way to create a YouTube channel that's successful, that is your job, that is niche, that is whatever. Yeah. And that's great if that's what you want to do.
Yeah. It's basically it's essentially if you were to replace YouTube with startup. Yeah. It's like all of the startup books, all of the, minimum viable products and all that type of stuff go towards creating an audience, like finding the audience that wants to buy your stuff, because it's does the product that you have fulfill a need, and can you find enough people with that need to create a successful business? So if you are basically saying I'm going to use YouTube or Instagram or whatever it is as this is my startup business, then obviously it's a little different than the conversation we're having.
Yeah.
Because
even still,
because you aren't looking at you're not trying to create art or whatever. You're trying to create a business.
Right.
And I think that a lot of times with young creators or people starting out too, they can confuse the two because a lot of times these, kids or whatever, they want to make things, but then they get caught up in the number side of it that doesn't really matter,
right?
And don't truly fulfill their passion or their whatever or their art or create the things that they could be creating, because our minds get so warped by the numbers, easily being able to see the numbers. Which that reminds me, another thing that I thought was, if you do actually look at business and YouTube and talk about the numbers and how artists and creators and YouTubers get so caught up in the numbers, and they put their self-worth in the numbers that they see. And one of the things that I said at the panel that I, not apologetic about, and I'll say it again, that if your self-worth is the numbers you see online, then you truly need to seek guidance. You need to see somebody. You need to talk to somebody about that, because that is so unhealthy.
It's very destructive. And I think, maybe that's where my kind of whole, even though I'm saying you can do the numbers, the strategy, the niche or whatever for a business, I still have a little reserve toward that. And it's probably because of that, because I don't think you should pay attention to numbers. It's so bad for you mentally. And just to base anything that you do off of that is just so unhealthy.
But what I was getting at is that in business, a lot of times, depending on what business you're in, but in traditional business, you don't have the luxury of knowing the minute to minute numbers like you do on YouTube. And every seasoned business knows that everything is an ebb and flow, that you have seasons of surplus, you have seasons of a little bit of downturn, every single business that is audience based, which is consumer, you have people who buy your product, which is pretty much every business.
Yeah.
They know that there are certain seasons where the numbers are up, there are certain seasons where the numbers are down, and they use those seasons to their advantage or, whatever. It's like they have the Christmas season that they're going to bring in tons of money, but then they're going to have a down season in, June or whatever it is. So they use that for, employee training or, create or R&D, whatever it is. It's like there's there's no business ever that has a steady line that is constantly going up.
Yeah.
It's like it may be a growth trend over its lifetime. Like it starts at 0 and it ends up at 1 million, but it doesn't maintain the same growth pattern until it hits 1 million.
Yeah.
It's up and down, up and down, up and down, way up, whatever it is in every single business. But because we, as millennials now, like have this new thing of online businesses with statistics.
Yeah.
And analytics.
It's almost your only marker because you don't have a physical representation of.
Right. We have literally real-time analytics that we can sit there and obsess over and be like, they love me, they love me, they love me. Oh, they hate me, they hate me, they hate me. I'm terrible, I'm awful. I can't make anything great. I'm stupid. Mm-hmm. Oh, wow, I had a video pop off. I'm loved. Yeah. I'm amazing. I'm on top of the world. I'm on top of the world. Next day, video flops. Instagram post doesn't, get very many likes, whatever. It's like, oh, I'm a terrible artist. I'm so stupid. I can't believe I thought the people would actually like that. Mm-hmm. That is so unhealthy. And it's so easy to get caught up in, because our brains were not made for this type of feedback.
Yeah.
And we also have had social media. Like, think about this. The iPhone was only invented 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. Social media hasn't had its rise until even less time than that.
Yeah.
And so to the degree now where we spend 4 hours a day on social media, we don't know what the long-term outcome is of spending that much time on social media, where we're getting these dopamine hits every single time we get a like and we get a comment and we get whatever. Yeah. And it goes back to that 1975, song or whatever. It ends with him dying, and what's left of him is a Facebook page. In a lonely
house on that lonely street in the lonely part of the world. You can find him on Facebook. It's so haunting because it's the truth of like where we're at. I also think like on the social media conversation right now, it's so bad for our creativity. I don't find ideas online when I'm on Instagram seeing other photos. I don't think like, that's inspirational. I want to do something like that. My creative ideas come from when I'm not on my phone. They come from outside. They come from, reading a book or like whatever it is. They do not come from social media. And like, I just keep feeling more and more that it's so bad for creativity, because again, on social media, I feel like we're all just chasing something on social media, regardless of if you're trying to be an influencer or not. Like, you're still chasing something on social media. There's a reason you're posting your photos there. And it's because I want to share my life with my friends. Yeah, but why? You want to share it so that they can see it, so that they can, there's like, you're chasing something, And like, that's not good for anybody. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I just feel like it's so counterproductive to creativity. Yet we're on it half of our day. Half of a work day, we're on social media.
Yep.
I don't get it. Anyways, I mean, I'm guilty too. I'm really bad at it. Really bad at it. But I do, like, I'm, having that conversation with myself. Like, why am I doing this? Why am I on it? What am I chasing? Chasing some sort of love, Everybody is. Or some sort of high. And it doesn't help me create things. I think you can share your creativity on them. They're great platforms, but I think that there's like something very wrong that I haven't been able to articulate about it yet.
And also, even if you may not be necessarily chasing love from the social medias.
Yeah, but it's all underlying.
But there is the side of it that all of us, are so susceptible to just being addicted to it.
Yeah.
Because it plays into exactly what our brain wants. And it's like...
That's what I mean by you're chasing something.
Yeah, but I'm saying that you could be actively chasing validation or love or whatever it is, but it also could be that you literally you don't even know why. You just constantly are checking and checking and checking and doing all this stuff.
I mean, I think this kind of goes into a different conversation maybe, but about addiction. And like, I've started looking at addiction as like completely different than I used to. Because, you know, when you think addiction, you think drugs, you think alcohol, you know, whatever, something like that. But I think we're all addicted to something. And the obvious thing is social media right now. But like, there's a reason that you find vices, right? We're all addicted to something, and we're all trying to not have to feel something. So we're like running to all of these vices, whether it is drugs or alcohol or social media. Like, we're all using it as a vice of some sort. Like, I don't know that you can have, again, these are all things I'm processing currently. So, you know, I might change my mind tomorrow, who knows? But I don't know if there's a way to have like a healthy relationship with social media. At least for me, every time I get on it, even if I'm in a good state, I'm in like a good mental process, like I get off of it feeling like a little less good. Like there's a reason that I'm getting on it, you know, and it's because I'm avoiding something else. And I don't think it's good for creativity. I'm pretty firm in that.
Yeah.
But it's weird because it's where we share our creativity. So like, what's the balance there, you know?
I don't know. I mean, I feel like very few have figured that out.
Oh, well, obviously. I think nobody has. I think that's the conversations we're all having.
Yeah.
You know?
But it is very evident that social media is posing a danger to our mental health.
Yeah.
In the fact that all of these companies, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, they have, even YouTube, they have all of their business goals are to keep your eyeballs on their product for as long as possible. That is literally their main objective, is to attract and keep as much attention as possible. And yet, all four of them have recently implemented some sort of limiter or the ability to see how much time you spend on that product, so you are an informed user, because I think it's very evident to all of them, to everybody, that they have created a monster that will ultimately lead to our self-destruction if not put basically if we don't start checking, you know, ourselves.
Yeah.
And we have no idea what this is doing to us. We have no idea what it's doing to the next generation who have grown up with it. And that, I mean, I have no idea what that's going to happen to these 11, 12, 13, 14-year-olds who their entire life have not known a life without being on social media, without posting their life and seeing people react immediately, and just constant scrolling through, you know, next of just updates after updates, and everything that, you know, like, what actual effect is that going to have long term for all of us?
Yeah.
And I can not in any way fathom it being ultimately positive.
Right.
Like, oh yeah, that probably will lead to world change.
Yes.
And that's not to vilify social media. I think there has been.
It's great.
I think there has been world change through social media when used properly, because it has been able to connect humans, like-minded humans, to go out and create social change and find community, find what all of the amazing aspects of a global connected humanity is definitely worth keeping around.
Yeah, I think that there are way more positives than there are negatives in that sense.
But the negative is that there's nobody to tell us no except for ourselves, and we are all awful
Well, and when your brain is literally wired to, because again, the whole objective of social media companies is to keep your eyeballs on it. So
Right.
it's pretty manipulative in a way.
Yeah.
And they're manipulating your brain,
Yeah.
And like,
I mean, if you just, I'm going to go on my phone right now and go to screen time.
no, you don't even want to see mine.
And for the last 7 days, this is like in the last 7 days, I've spent 2 hours and 18 minutes per day on average on my phone, which, I don't know, 2 hours a day seems like a lot to me. But
Well, that would be admirable for me. Mine says 3 hours and 5 minutes.
And I don't know what that is on the global average, but the thing that I think baffles me
Yeah.
is the total pickups.
Yeah.
And so this is the amount of times that you have picked up your phone and looked at the screen. It doesn't matter if it was for 1 second
Yeah.
or, you spent an hour on it. In the last 7 days, my total pickups were 442 times.
That's it.
I had 63 times per day.
Mine were total pickups were 739, 105 per day.
But it's like, it's just crazy that we don't even realize.
I picked up my phone 105 times a day.
Yeah. Like
I hate that. That makes me depressed about myself.
100 times throughout the course of a day, picked up your phone and looked at it.
Yeah.
Picked up your phone and looked at it. Like anyways.
That's 4.37 times an hour. And you sleep for 8 of those hours.
Right.
That's insane. And it's so it I think it makes productivity worse too because, well, obviously it does, but like you're distracting yourself even if you're you're just looking at it for a second and putting it back down. You lost your train of thought.
Mm-hmm.
You broke through your work habit and now you have to start fresh.
We have no idea the power of deep work anymore.
Yeah.
Because I
don't think we have it.
We have not practiced those skills at all.
I don't have it.
And the ability to be bored.
That's one thing that I'm like really big on now. Well, even wasn't it Jonah Hill was talking about that for the mid-90s movie. He said he had to find an 11-year-old now who could understand what it was like to, be bored, to just sit outside and like make stuff up,
Right.
Like we don't know what that is anymore.
And I don't have an answer. It is kind of sad to me.
It can be, I think, a little bit, but the only way to find a solution is to have a conversation about it.
Right.
So.
And I think this is a conversation that we will continue to have. I think that social media is, we have to continue having this conversation if we are going to ultimately go on a journey of, mental health and emotional health and truly kicking a habit that is probably the biggest addiction of our age.
Well, the trouble is we didn't know getting into it,
right.
It was this big, new, exciting development. So like you just like dive in head first, right? And then you get in and you're drowning and you're like, oh my gosh, what did I do? And so I think now we're just having to put a life vest on to continue the
right.
That's where we're at.
Yeah, so that I'm going to wrap up the conversation there before we end up talking for much longer.
Yeah.
So thank you guys for listening to Deeply Curious. We very much appreciate it. These conversations are very fun for us to have, and we are happy that we have found an audience that loves, engaging and listening to these conversations. And we also do love you contributing to the conversation. But like, this conversation is about, we hope that we can remain authentic to who we are.
Yeah.
And, that type of thing. And at the meetup, I feel like that's something that almost every single person who came up to us mentioned or talked to us about was how much they just love how authentic we are and how real we are. And I think that is testament to exactly what we are talking about right now.
Yeah.
Is that people are craving and they are searching for authenticity in people. And I feel like if you are chasing an audience, if you are changing yourself for an audience, then that is the opposite of being authentic. That is the opposite of truly being yourself. And the thing that is that your audience craves is to see an authentic version of you.
Yeah.
So go out there, create some stuff, be authentic.
Yep.
And be unapologetically yourself.
Yeah. Don't worry about the numbers.
And as a reminder, this podcast is brought to you by B&H Photo Video. B&H is an amazing resource for all of your photo, video, pro audio needs. You can check out the gear that we have by checking out the links in the show notes. And you can also check out the Deeply Curious merch by going to shop.deeplycurious.fm. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.